Hello, and today I'm going to be talking about glyphosate resistant crops. Um, so to start out, glyphosate resistant crops are a GMO, and that means genetically modified organism, and that's a organism that their DNA is altered, um, so they can have an advantageous trait. So I'm talking about glyphosate resistant crops. Um, a common farming practice is the overusage of herbicides, which in turn kill their crops if they use it too much. And that's a big problem because how are we going to feed the U.S.? So, um, the very big company in the agriculture sector, Monsanto, creator of Roundup, one of the most popular herbicides, created these glyphosate resistant plants called Roundup Ready plants. Um, and basically, it makes them resistant to glyphosate, which will only kill the weeds now instead of the plants. And they took this gene, this glyphosate resistance, from agrobacteria. Um, some benefits of this glyphosate resistant plant: it won't die. The major thing, it won't die when glyphosate is used to kill the weeds. Also, it cannot crossbreed with weeds, so then the weeds won't inherit that glyphosate resistance. Um, and when it decays, when the Roundup Ready plants decompose, one worry about it was that when they decompose, the decomposing plant matter would be toxic to the soil. But these Roundup Ready plants are almost identical to the normal plant matter. And another huge benefit is that one of the most environmentally dangerous farming practices is the overusage of herbicides. So because the crops are less resistant, the crops are more resistant to herbicides. They can use less herbicides. They won't have to use as much herbicides, or they could switch it over to the sole usage of glyphosate to kill the weeds. And those are the benefits. Some of the negative things, and one of the huge negative things of that is associated with GMO crops that are pest resistant or herbicide resistant, or pesticide resistant or herbicide resistant, is the thing that they're trying to fight off, develop a resistance to the herbicide or the pesticide um, through coevolution and natural selection. So if these weeds develop a glyphosate resistance because they're constantly using glyphosate, then you'll have super weeds, which obviously won't die and they'll become a problem. And this can be fixed by crop cycling, which is changing the crop seasonally. So it uses different nutrients, and they won't have to constantly use the pesticide or the herbicide. And it's a very environmentally friendly practice, but it's not efficient. It's not economically efficient and worthwhile for these farmers. It requires a lot more work and requires them to broaden their crops. And it's just not worth it for them, so they won't do it. Also, if these weeds become super weeds and develop this glyphosate resistance, this will lead to the return of unsafe farming practices like the overusage of herbicides again. Not very good. Personally, I do not like this crop. Monsanto has been known for basically cutting corners and having huge political influence. There was a former Monsanto attorney who became the deputy commissioner of the FDA. Basically gave Monsanto all this freedoms that they can do, and Monsanto is big business. Usually don't care about the environment. and Monsanto usually destroys smaller businesses. So personally, I'm not a huge fan because of my bias towards Monsanto. But without my bias towards Monsanto, I think these glyphosate resistant crops are not really worth it either. I personally think that if we do use glyphosate resistant crops, then farmers should lean towards using more environmentally safe practices, like crop cycling.